This story is set in the ancient Stone Age, when other tribes were still eating raw meat and gnawing on wild vegetables. You led your tribesmen to drink hot soup and eat roasted meat. Not only did you get to eat fragrant cooked rice, but you also used advanced weapons that spanned ages, just because you brought advanced special technology back to this ancient era. And in your previous life you were originally a special forces king, who unfortunately fell off a cliff while capturing criminals at the border. Opening your eyes again, you found several women wrapped in animal skin standing before you. However, the pain coming from your foot left you no time to overthink. Relying on your years of wilderness survival experience as a special forces soldier, you quickly concluded that the wound on your foot was caused by a snake bite. So you picked up a stone knife nearby and sliced the wound open, then poked a red-hot branch into the wound. After a miserable howl, you lay exhausted on the ground, only hoping the high temperature could kill the snake venom proteins. After a night of life and death torment, the next day you came back to life like a resilient cockroach. Taking a piece of dried meat from a woman's hand, you wolfed it down. After eating you gestured wildly for a while, continuing to ask for food. The woman's answer to you was naturally impossible. After all, in this small tribe with a total population of just over 50 people, the food that could be obtained every day was limited. Plus, it is now the season to store food before winter, so food would be prioritized for adult strong laborers. Seeing this, you could only figure out a way to fill your stomach yourself. Seeing the weather getting colder day by day, you must quickly figure out a way to store food for the winter. Thinking carefully, the easiest meat to obtain right now was fish. Less than a kilometer from here there was a small river, but the people of this tribe didn't eat fish, and naturally had no fishing tools. Thinking up to this point you had to get some vines yourself, weave a basket, and then go catch fish. In a short while, you returned to the cave entrance with a large bundle of vines, and started making woven baskets. Several little companions gathered around and watched you curiously, babbling awu awu in their mouths, unable to speak human words. Several women nearby were drying thatch near the cave. Just at this moment, a terrified scream suddenly came from afar. You saw the bearded chief and two men, each holding a giant bird egg, running and howling loudly, accompanied by several piercing screeches. A terror bird over 3 meters tall was closely chasing behind the chief. You instantly shouted loudly to quickly throw the eggs away. Unfortunately, no one could understand. The chief didn't give up the bird egg in his hand, and the terror bird didn't give up on the chief either. After a little while, the chief was caught by the terror bird with a vicious peck. The chief died on the spot. The two adult men who ran back with him saw this, quickly threw the eggs in their hands away, turned around and ran to the edge of the jungle, climbed up a tree, and thus narrowly escaped a disaster. This group of little companions beside you had nowhere seen such a terrifying scene. They immediately screamed in fright. After losing its target, the terror bird instantly turned its direction and sprinted towards the crying children on this side of the cave. Seeing this, you quickly took a few children and hid inside the cave. The women in the cave swiftly pushed a round stone, firmly blocking the cave entrance. Seeing it couldn't enter the cave, the terror bird turned around and walked to the chief's corpse and started pecking at his body. You clenched your teeth and decided to make the terror bird stay. It had now tasted human flesh and knew the location of your tribe. In the future, the tribe would probably never have peace again, but right now you didn't have any weapons in your hands. Fighting head-on definitely wouldn't work. Just at this moment, you saw those two long legs of the terror bird. Instantly your eyes lit up, and you immediately began to prepare. First finding 2 fist-sized stones, then untying the snakeskin wrapped around your waist, tying the stones to each side respectively. After making it, you carried the simple bola and squeezed out through the gap in the cave entrance. The people in the cave were all shocked. They wanted to chase and pull you back, but were afraid of drawing the terror bird back again, and could only anxiously watch as bystanders from inside. You quietly hid in the bushes, moving forward while bending over, until stopping at a place 500 to 600 meters away from the terror bird. At this time, the terror bird was still raptly enjoying the delicious food. Unaware that you had already targeted it, you quietly stood up, grabbed the middle point of the snakeskin rope, and quickly spun the bola. The 2 stones swung up under the action of centrifugal force, instantly pulling the rope straight. The terror bird noticed the commotion over here, raised its head, let out a sharp cry, and sprinted towards you. Watching it get closer and closer, the women and children at the cave entrance were frightened and howling, but you still stood firmly in place. Right when the terror bird rushed to a distance of 30 meters from you, you fiercely threw the bola at it. The released bola spun around, and the moment it touched the terror bird's 2 long legs, it quickly tightened. The terror bird that had already rushed to nearly 10 meters in front of you directly lost its balance and fell over. Its 2 small wings kept flapping, but it just couldn't stand up. The women and little companions at the cave entrance were all dumbfounded, with their mouths wide open. Unable to believe the scene just now, you immediately called two little companions to hold down the terror bird's neck, while you lifted a large stone and smashed it down viciously. Blood instantly splattered from the terror bird's head. Its body also stopped violently struggling, and soon completely lost its breath. The two little companions looked at you, their eyes filled with awe. You untied the snakeskin from the terror bird's legs and tied it back around your waist. Then, signaled the two to help you carry the terror bird back to the cave. The two were now very obedient, totally looking like little fanboys. Then the three of you worked together, pulling the terror bird's legs, walking towards the cave. Seeing the three people catch such a huge prey and bring it back, the people in the cave couldn't stay still. Howling, they moved the giant stone away and rushed out from the cave to help. In the distance, those two adult men hiding in the tree also climbed down. They witnessed with their own eyes your entire process of hunting the terror bird alone, and were also extremely full of admiration for you. This was their tribe's history, the first time hunting such a large prey. Returning to the cave, you told the women to leave the feathers for yourself and let them handle the rest themselves. Returning to the cave, you told the women to leave the feathers for yourself and let them handle the rest themselves. Now that the danger was cleared, you also had to continue weeding your own basket. After about an hour's time, 2 baskets were already finished. Using the basket to hold some of the terror bird's internal organs, you walked towards the riverside. Along the way, a woman saw you going to the river alone and followed you. In her heart, she thought you were very amazing, so she must definitely keep a close eye on you. And the 2 boys who just recognized you as their boss saw that you had made a strange thing and were going out again, and immediately chased after you. The group of 4 people quickly arrived at the river. You stood on the riverbank and observed carefully for a while first, but the more you looked, the more alarmed you became. In just a few minutes of time, you saw several murder cases of big fish eating small fish. There were actually carnivorous fish species in this river, but you had to admit, the ecological environment here was really good. The water of the small river could be seen to the bottom at a glance. The fish inside were also very many. After selecting the spot, you tightly gripped the grass rope on the basket and put the basket into the river. The smell of raw meat quickly dispersed in the water. The fish within a radius of 20 meters all became restless, quickly swimming over towards your side, one after another burrowing into the basket, and started to scramble for those internal organs. You dragged the basket out of the water fiercely. Besides the ones that escaped from the basket, there were still 4 big fish left, and the fish in the river not only didn't escape, but also swarmed together below, scrambling for the internal organs. This instantly gave you a kind of feeling of feeding koi fish in the park. The 2 little companions and that adult woman were all very surprised. Using that strange thing to put inside the water, pulling it up, could get that kind of legless thing in the water up, but what to do after getting them up? They still didn't understand. You poured the 4 fish on the ground. After carefully processing them, cut off a piece of raw fish fillet and put it in your mouth to eat. Watching the way you chewed the raw fish fillet, they immediately understood this was something edible, so they also imitated your way. Cut a piece and put it in their mouths to eat. That woman's eyes instantly lit up. She immediately realized this was a new food source, while babbling and calling out, gesturing for you to teach her how to catch fish. But you didn't let her do this. Instead, you let her and a child act responsible for slaughtering the fish. Another child used grass to string up the clean fish on a wooden stick to carry back to the tribe later, while you continued to scoop fish. Now that all the fish had gathered together, you simply squatted on the bank using the basket to scoop. Every scoop down brought a considerable harvest. The 4 people kept doing this for a whole afternoon. In the end, the fish scooped up were well over 200. The biggest one had to be around 10 pounds. 3 people definitely couldn't carry them back, so you had to send a child back to call some older children over to help. Finally, a group of people carrying on their shoulders and lifting them marched mightily towards the cave. At this time, the teams out foraging for fruits and hunting had all returned because they had no tools. The prey the adults hunted were all some rabbits, pheasants, and similar small animals. Just at this time, the children carried the fish back to the cave, all howling and calling out, showing off their harvest for today to the adults. Originally, those adults were still feeling a bit sad because of the chief's death, but when they saw your harvest today, they instantly became happy again. The tragedy of the chief was instantly thrown to the back of their minds. After cleaning up today's harvest, all the tribespeople came outside the cave. A large pile of firewood was piled up in the open space in front of the cave. The chief's corpse was placed on top. An old man wearing 2 goat horns on his head lit the firewood pile. The roaring fire quickly swallowed the chief's corpse. The firelight shone on everyone's faces. The children, smelling the scent of roast meat, were all swallowing their saliva. They didn't have the slightest feeling of sorrow. The adults were also, because they had a new food source, looking calm in their expressions. And you exactly took this opportunity to observe this tribe. This tribe currently had a total of 52 people. There were 8 adult men, 15 adult women. The rest were all children of various sizes. Among them, the one who just lit the fire was the tribe's elder. Because of the reason he looked the oldest, he was publicly recognized by the tribe as the smartest person, but now he might have to rank second, because you were replacing his position in everyone's hearts. There was also a man with 6 fingers on his hand. The weapon he liked to use was a wooden club, probably because of inbreeding. He as a whole looked a bit unintelligent. Next to 6 fingers was a guy with a feather necklace hanging around his neck. This person surprisingly looked quite smart. Like 6 fingers, he liked using a wooden club. Behind Feather was Stone wearing a bone necklace. His commonly used weapon was a stone. A bit farther from the two of them was a 15-year-old youth. This guy only had one right ear. There were also 4 scars on his left face. His weapon was a tubular fork polished from a straight thigh bone. Next to left ear was 17-year-old Beast Fong. His father was the chief from 2 generations ago, and the weapon he held in his hand were 2 saber-toothed tiger fangs over a foot long. There was a tall Strength who was the tallest in the whole tribe, strong and sturdy in body. His weapon was simple and brutal, which was a thigh bone. The last one was a cripple leaning on a wooden staff. He now followed the gathering team every day, specifically responsible for clearing the path and standing guard. Moreover, he liked to polish stone tools. It was said his greatest ideal was to be able to polish out a stone disc in his lifetime. Generally speaking, among all the people, Single Ear, Beast Fong, and Tall Strength could be considered the top combat strengths in the tribe. By the time the chief finished burning, the sky was also completely dark. Under the leadership of the elder, everyone came into the cave and began to distribute the food. Because everyone hadn't eaten fish before, so today made an exception for you to distribute. You took a fish roasted in advance and demonstrated to them how to eat and pick the bones. Everyone also perfectly imitated it, eating with great relish, perhaps because it was the first time eating full. The more everyone ate, the happier they became, actually starting to dance while eating. The scene before your eyes made you suddenly have a feeling of home, secretly vowing in your heart that you must definitely lead the tribe to live a better life. Wait until after everyone finished eating. The elder wearing goat horns took a burnt charcoal stick and recorded the scene of you scooping fish by the river on the rock wall, while you taught the women how to weave baskets on the side, and randomly added 2 grass ropes on top, changing them into backpacks. Like this, they in the future wouldn't need to use animal skin to hold fruit anymore, thereby improving the efficiency of picking. Several women took one look and loved it, taking turns trying it on their bodies over and over again, reluctant to put it down. Finally had to discuss picking some vines tomorrow, for them to make them themselves. To express their gratitude, they picked 2 deerskins from the gathering team and placed them in your hands. From then on, you became the first child in the tribe to wear a beast skin. But you were not stingy. You kept one for yourself, and the other one you distributed to the mothers of several 2 or 3-year-old children, letting them make clothes for their children. You must know that children have poor immunity, and in primitive society, there is absolutely no medical technology. A simple cold or fever could take the lives of those children, so it is no exaggeration to say that this piece of deerskin is a life. You must know that children have poor immunity, and in primitive society, there is absolutely no medical technology. A simple cold or fever could take the lives of those children, so this piece of deerskin is no exaggeration to say it is a life. You believe that if one day you need their help, they definitely will not be ungrateful. The next day you woke up very early. After a simple set of military gymnastics, you felt a little thirsty, but looking at the water in the stone basin that everyone drank from together, you still couldn't bring yourself to drink it. It seems it's time to fire some water containers. Soon, the tribesmen also chattered as they walked out of the cave, but they were not in a hurry to go out hunting today. The elder gathered all the men in the open space at the cave entrance. It seemed meant to re-elect a new chief. You thought to yourself that only by becoming the chief could you command everyone, so you also joined the ranks of the candidates. The way to compete for chief was simple and crude. 2 people dueling without weapons. The strongest one would be the next chief. Soon One Ear and Big Strength won successively. You watched their competition and shook your head helplessly. There were completely no tactics at all, just blindly competing with brute strength. Soon it was time for the competition between One Ear and Big Strength. Big Strength, with a height of 1.9 meters, stood there just like an iron tower. One Ear instantly felt a sense of not knowing where to start, but he didn't cower. Instead, he shouted loudly and took the lead in launching an attack. But unexpectedly, as soon as he reached Big Strength's side, he was immediately grabbed by the shoulders by Big Strength's big hands. Before he could react, he was thrown several meters away by Big Strength. He hit the ground with a bang and couldn't get up for a long time. Big Strength excitedly thumped his chest. The tribesmen also shouted excitedly, showing their approval of this new chief. Just at this moment, you took a few steps to walk in front of him. "There's still me," seeing that a little brat like you dared to challenge. He thumped his chest and let out a roar from his mouth. But you didn't show weakness either, standing in front of Big Strength and posing in a fighting stance. Big Strength looked down at you, who only reached his chest, his eyes full of confidence and disdain. The viewing friends howled and cheered you on. You didn't hesitate either, rushing quickly to Big Strength's front. Stepping on Big Strength's slightly bent thigh with your left foot, you leaped up fiercely, delivering a knee strike with your right leg. It violently smashed into Big Strength's chin. Before everyone could react, Big Strength fell straight to the ground, rolling left and right and groaning on the ground. The tribesmen present were instantly dumbfounded. You must know that Big Strength was the strongest warrior in their tribe. Even if he lost, he shouldn't be one shot. And the opponent was still an underage child. The elder suddenly became very excited. An unfounded, but very strong feeling appeared in his heart. The whole tribe might, because of this child in front of them, become more and more powerful. Before he could give instructions, you had been lifted up and tossed high by all the tribesmen. To celebrate the birth of the new chief, in just 2 short days, you had brought too many miracles to the tribe. Actually, such a result was what everyone had expected, and at this moment Big Strength had recovered. He obviously still felt somewhat unconvinced. Amidst the exclamations of the crowd, he quickly lunged at you. Seeing this, you immediately flipped to the ground. Wait until he rushed close. You backhandedly grabbed 2 of his fingers with one hand, and forcefully swung forward. Then with a sidestep, you went around to Big Strength's back, and fiercely kicked him in the back of the knee. Big Strength fell directly face down on the ground. The more he struggled, the more painful it was. In less than 2 minutes, a fierce man as strong as Big Strength also had to beg for mercy with tears and snot. Only then did you clap your hands, and let go of this tearful silly big brother, and then turned around and entered the cave. With this, the crowd started making noise again. The bratty kids were cheering, celebrating their minor's first defeat of an adult. The women were discussing where they had seen vines, and planned to ask the chief to teach them to weave a few more baskets when they returned tonight. The elder, however, stared at the cave with complex eyes, not knowing what he was thinking. Just at this time, you, with a brand new look, appeared in front of everyone again, wearing a simple deerskin shirt. Your black long hair was tied up with a snakeskin. Your whole person looked clean, refreshing, yet capable. This was your new look after thinking again and again. It is said that this kind of dress began in the Shang and Zhou dynasties. Early farmers, because it was inconvenient to farm with loose hair, began to tie up their hair. This is also the Han nationality, which is mainly based on farming. One of the important symbols of early farmers, because it was inconvenient to farm with loose hair, began to tie up their hair. This is also the Han nationality, which is mainly based on farming. One of the important symbols of. Under the starstruck gazes of the tribesmen, you walked into the crowd, and began to arrange today's work. First, you readjusted the personnel of the gathering team. The tribe now had a total of 15 adult women. 6 of them had big pregnant bellies. The remaining 9 plus cripple made 10 people. However, today you only sent 8 women to gather. Now that they had baskets, they didn't need cripple to protect them. Each holding a stick for self-defense was still no problem. The 6 pregnant women stayed behind to watch the house, and incidentally took care of those few 2 or 3-year-old brats. The older children all went to pull weeds. The remaining woman took 2 boys to the river to catch fish. Now everyone had work to do, but Cripple didn't receive a task. Because of this, he appeared somewhat depressed. For this man who vowed to spend his whole life grinding out a stone basin, you plan to let him be responsible for firing pottery. But firing pottery is not such a simple thing. It still requires preparing a lot of things, so you had to arrange some other things for him first. The fish caught yesterday had not yet air dried. In this kind of weather, without salt, they would quickly rot. After being smoked, they could be kept for years without spoiling. So you demonstrated to Cripple for a moment, and threw it all to him to do. And you found a flat ground in front of the cave, and began digging a pit to build a kiln. The whole kiln was divided into upper, middle, and lower 3 layers. The lowest was used to clear out ashes and let in air. The middle layer to add firewood and burn fire. The highest layer to place pottery. It took fully 3 or 4 hours of time to finally complete building the kiln. But a wet kiln cannot be used. So you called those 2 friends who caught fish yesterday to put firewood on every layer and light a fire. This way it should be usable in the afternoon. After arranging all the work, you personally came to the riverside to pick clay, found a smooth and flat large cobblestone to use as a workbench. After slapping and kneading the dug clay, soon, the first small water tank with a small bottom and a large mouth was completed. Subsequently, following the same method, you made 4 in a row, placing them all beside the cave to dry in the sun. Next were a few double-layered clay pots and dozens of pottery bowls, as well as some small tableware. These things do not aim for beauty, only for practicality. At this time you still couldn't be sure exactly how many of these things would successfully fire into finished products. When it was about halfway through the afternoon, you put all the semi-finished products sequentially into the fire kiln. The 2 friends and Cripple all stood by the side, staring fixedly at the new chief. who actually managed to make so many clay pots in one day, just not knowing if they could be used. You ignored them, sitting by the fire pit, adding enough firewood inside. Just like this, it went on until dusk. The tribesmen who went out successively returned to the tribe. The women's harvest was quite abundant. The baskets were all filled with wild fruits, as well as large bundles of vines. It seems they were prepared to weave baskets. The men's harvest today was also a lot. 2 large birds looking similar to turkeys, as well as some bird eggs and a few marmots, plus the more than 100 fish caught today. The overall harvest of the tribe was very considerable. All food that could not be finished that day could all be stored away, seeing that those pregnant women were about to give birth soon. By then they would also be able to have sufficient food. When the pottery bowls began to turn white, you stopped adding firewood, allowing the flames inside to extinguish naturally and cool for a night. Tomorrow morning the kiln could be opened. After a day of labor, the tribesmen were all very tired, but they sat around the bonfire, with happy smiles hanging on each face. Now they would never have to be hungry anymore. Most importantly, you made the 2 large birds into beggar's chicken. They had never eaten such delicious food before, but you didn't have much of an appetite, because this food only had a little bit of coarse salt sprinkled on it. You couldn't taste the saltiness at all. Coarse salt is currently very precious. It is said that this was exchanged from other tribes. Coarse salt is currently very precious. It is said that this was exchanged from other tribes. You secretly calculated in your heart whether you could use pottery to exchange for some more back. After everyone finished eating, the women returned to the cave and began weaving baskets. They found that the baskets were indeed very useful. Today the number of people in the gathering team was less, but the harvest was instead more, and you took all the beast skins and distributed them out. Now a few children squeezing together could all be covered with blankets. Waking up the next morning, you immediately went to check the result of the fired pottery. Cripple at the first moment pulled the elder to crowd over, babbling something to the elder, looking quite nervous. You yourself were actually also very nervous. After all, your great plan to exchange salt, as well as the meat soup you have longed for, all depend on it. With the mood of smashing a golden egg, you lifted the dirt lid on top of the kiln. Sticking your head over to look, you saw all the pottery bowls showing a bright earth red color, as if they had been glazed, unexpectedly smooth. Seeing this, Cripple grabbed that pottery bowl and excitedly stroked it up and down, back and forth. Subsequently, he stumbled back running to the cave. Not a while later, he was seen running back carrying a bowl of water and howling, happily showing off to the tribesmen this beautiful container that can hold water. You smiled and continued taking the pottery out. The 4 clay pots and 4 small water tanks were fired very successfully. The smooth surfaces didn't have a trace of cracks. Of the 8 spoons, only 2 were finished products. The rest had been burnt and melted, all stuck together. Of the more than 20 pottery bowls, only 12 didn't affect the usage. Piece after piece of earth red pottery successively came out of the kiln, bringing to the tribesmen, apart from shock, there was also excitement. Beast Tooth and Big Strength had the fastest hands, each hugging a tank and running towards the river. In no time they hugged back 2 tanks of water. Although the elder was excited, he was still able to remain calm, inquiring of you with gestures and speaking about how this was done. Before you could speak, the 2 friends who helped yesterday rushed to explain to him, but what you cared about most was still the matter of whether it could be exchanged for salt. Gesturing, you expressed this question to the elder. Unexpectedly, the elder actually looked at you with an expression like looking at a prodigal son. While pointing at the large and small pottery, he also pointed at the adults and children in the tribe, telling you in local dialect exactly how precious this stuff is. After understanding, you were completely shocked. Even if it's just a bowl, it could be exchanged for a soon-to-be adult boy, or 2 girls, not to mention those water tanks and clay pots. In the various tribes currently, water-holding containers are exceedingly rare. Grinding a stone basin for a lifetime is a common thing. To obtain more containers, some tribes would not hesitate to exchange using population. They feel having more population is useless, and will also consume more food. But you feel that more people can obtain more food, and it also increases the tribe's combat power. The addition of new members also injects fresh blood into the tribe. Thinking of this, you immediately assign the trading tasks. The elder and all 7 members of the hunting team set out, using 1 water vat and 1 clay pot, and 3 clay bowls to exchange for population and salt. Use the water vat to exchange for 2 adult women, the clay pot to exchange for 2 almost adult boys, and all 3 clay bowls to exchange for salt. If there is no salt, then use the clay bowls to exchange for girls. After saying this, the group immediately set off. The trade was to be conducted with a tribe to the west. After crossing a mountain and crossing a valley, the group soon arrived at their destination. This tribe was slightly larger than your Han tribe, with a population of about 80 or 90 people. The 2 tribes had frequently exchanged things before. Seeing that the elders group had brought things for exchange, the other side's balding chief immediately came out to greet them. After a brief conversation, the elder took a clay bowl from the basket and handed it to him. Use this to exchange for salt. The balding chief's eyes suddenly lit up. This clay bowl was smooth inside and out, and much lighter than the stone basins of his own tribe. He immediately let 2 tribesmen go fetch a small bag of salt, and handed it to the elder. But the elder took the bag, took one look and shook his head, saying, "We want more. And this time we also want to exchange for 2 adult women." Saying this, he let Dolly take out that water vat. The balding chief was instantly dumbfounded. This stone basin is so big, it can store much more water in the future. The next moment he hesitated. 2 women to exchange for 1. This kind of big stone basin is indeed a good deal. But right now is the autumn season for gathering food. 1 less person means a little less harvest. But in the end, he still smiled and agreed. Doesn't 1 less person mean reduced consumption? This is a huge profit. After a short while, 2 emaciated women were brought over. This is a pair of adult sisters. In the older sister's arms, she was also holding a 4-year-old bare-bottomed little boy. The little boy's eyes were closed and he lay motionless. With one look, it was obvious he was sick. "We will use these 2 people to exchange for your large stone basin. That little boy is given to you for free." The balding chief waved his hand with a look of disgust, seemingly urging these 2 women to leave quickly. The elder looked at these 2 weak women, and didn't say anything. He then let Shartu take the clay pot he was carrying, and the remaining clay bowls out. "If you want them, you can use boys to exchange." The balding chief had just exchanged for the large vat. Now seeing this slightly smaller one, although he liked it, he still waved his hands to indicate he wouldn't exchange anymore. Seeing this, the elder had to follow the method you taught this morning, and demonstrate on the spot, using the clay pot to boil a pot of meat soup. Very soon, a strong meat aroma floated out from the pot. The people of the other tribe immediately started swallowing their saliva wildly. So meat could actually be eaten like this. The balding chief couldn't wait to take the clay bowl from the elder's hand. It contained a few pieces of stewed meat and meat soup. The balding chief hesitated and took a bite. He was instantly stunned. "My God, it is really too fragrant." The salty and fragrant meat soup floated a layer of beautiful oil droplets. That delicious and juicy stewed meat. One bite down, his whole person felt comfortable. "Isn't it just a few children? Exchange, we must exchange." At this time, the balding chief finally became generous, and readily gave the people away, and also let his subordinate bring out a large bag of salt, filling Dolly's basket full. Seeing this, the elder nodded in satisfaction. Immediately, the group grandly started their return journey. When they came, it was a team of 7 people, plus the 9 people they bought. When they went back, it became 16 people. This harvest is much stronger than hunting for a day. The group hurried on their way, and finally returned to the Han tribe near dusk. It's just that these few bought people, right after walking to the open space at the entrance of the cave, were all completely shocked. At the entrance of the cave, lay the 4 water vats newly fired by Lame today, 4 pots and a large stack of bowls. Lame was looking at these potteries and giggling silly. This was the happiest day of his life. And on the open space on the other side, hundreds of large fish were hanging together air drying. The women nearby were all smiling happily. These are all meat. Now they can also catch meat food, especially those few who were just exchanged back. The adults and children were all dumbfounded. You must know that 1 stone basin could exchange for 2 adult people, but this tribe actually has so many. And those hanging meats should all be edible. It seems coming to this tribe is also not bad. The elder led the people to report their work to you. The 8 stark naked people, plus a stark naked child. You narrowed your eyes and walked past them one by one. Each and every one was skinny and frail, looking like defective goods at first glance. But it doesn't matter. The tribe has plenty of meat. 1 winter can restore it all back. Although she didn't know what you were doing just now, but it didn't look like you wanted to harm her child. Once she relaxed, her stomach that hadn't eaten for 2 days started growling from hunger. Looking at the fish soup in front of her, she kept swallowing her saliva. Huge chunks of fish meat were handed to her hands. Then you took the child from her arms, holding him in your arms and wrapping him tightly in animal skin. At this time, you were worried to death in your heart. A small fever could put people to death. Now everyone's eating problem is temporarily solved, but what about clothes? If we want to save up as many animal skins as possible, we still have to hunt large animals. But our current weapons absolutely cannot do it. In future hunts, I still must follow and go out to find some materials to make weapons. No matter how bad, I must set up some traps or something. You secretly swore in your heart, before winter arrives, I must make sure everyone has a piece of clothing. When everyone had finished eating, the little boy also woke up, covered covered in sweat. You handed him back to the woman, and personally tied his hair into a bundle for him, and also gave him a name called Subing. The woman was very happy. Not only did the chief of the new tribe save her child, he also personally tied the same hairstyle as the others for him. This means he has accepted them. After these people finished these things, you started making equipment for yourself. You picked out a relatively straight stick, and tied the spearhead ground from the leg bone of a terror bird to one end of the stick. A primitive bone spear just appeared. Next, you broke off some terror bird beaks, and ground them into a short knife. The remaining materials were handed over to Lame, letting him also craft one. Right now, the equipment is only these two pieces. Everything needs to be done by oneself. Early the next morning, after the tribesmen had all gotten up, you assign new tasks. Lane continues to fire pottery. We must first ensure that everyone has a bowl at least. The remaining children stay behind to help hunt, led by you personally. All members of the hunting team, plus the two little friends who usually follow you, Big Mouth and Monkey, and the two brothers, Dummo and Irmo, who were just bought yesterday. A full team of 11 people strode towards the jungle facing the morning sun. After entering the jungle, the hunting team spread out. Each adult hunted independently. You, instead, took your 4 little brothers. They carried baskets on their backs, and held a bundle of straw ropes to be your assistants.